I would hope that this amendment would be seen as bipartisan because it is in keeping with existing policy that there is no smoking on airlines today. But that does not include electronic cigarettes or vaping devices. My amendment would prohibit electronic cigarettes and vaping devices. And it's interesting to note that some airlines have already gone ahead of us and banned electronic cigarettes and vaping devices. It's also important to note that, and by the way, and I should know when I say existing policy, for 25 years, we have banned smoking on airlines, and nobody thinks anything of it any longer. Then here comes these vaporizers and electronic cigarettes, about which we know too little. So there is a rule, a DOT rule, pending. It's a notice at this point, not a rule, but a notice of proposed rulemaking on this very subject. The problem is that notice has been outstanding for 5 years and has not moved. So this bill is an opportunity for the Congress to be heard on this important health issue, which is also a nuisance issue. Imagine getting on a plane and having someone light up an electronic cigarette. So it also shows that passengers themselves have not caught up with their luggage, because you cannot take an e-cigarette on a plane on your checked baggage. So it's time that we thought about passengers as much as we think about the fires that may occur if they were in their luggage. I also caution members that this is a burgeoning subject. In just 1 year between 2010 and 2011, e-cigarette use among adults doubled. Congress could legislatively resolve this issue. The airlines who have already taken some steps along this line are probably doing so in keeping with their own customers. Before this issue gets out of hand, as smoking itself did get out of hand, millions of people died before we understood what had to be done with cigarettes. We don't need to repeat that history, and I hope that there will be support on both sides for my amendment to prohibit the use of electronic cigarettes and vaping devices, just as we already ban those devices to be carried in one's luggage.
Gentlelady yield?
I yield.
With that, I yield to a gentleman from California, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, I'd like to say this. So, this is called a vaporizer. There's no combustion, there's no carcinogens. What the gentlelady did not say is that smoking has gone down as the use of vaporizers has gone up. There is no burning. There's nothing noxious about this whatsoever. This has helped thousands of people quit smoking. It's helped me quit smoking. And in the next decade or so, you're going to be able to inhale ibuprofen, you're going to be able to inhale your Prozac, and anything else that you need drug-wise, you're going to be able to inhale it.
Could I reclaim my time?
This amendment, I think that the gentlelady already yielded, but I'll be happy to yield in just a moment. The way that this amendment's written, too, you won't be able to have an asthma inhaler, you won't be able to have a nebulizer, you won't be able to inhale anything. This is the future. Smoking's going away, and the ability to take in nicotine or any other form of medication in the future will be in something like a vaporizer. For freedom's sake, and for the sake of people that are trying to quit smoking and quit dipping and still have nicotine, I would urge my friends here and colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I'd be happy to yield to the gentlelady.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Please note in in the bill itself that the electronic cigarette means a device that delivers nicotine or other subjects. I appreciate what the gentleman said, but you notice that he
Reclaiming my time, it says delivers nicotine or other substances, which is anything.
Thank you. If I could continue.
I will yield back to the gentlelady.
Thank you. You spoke about the vaping devices, but you did not say that you opposed electronic cigarettes. So I take it you don't oppose that because that helped you to get off of...
Reclaiming my time, this is a personal vaporizer. We actually don't even call them electronic cigarettes anymore because they're not cigarettes. They have
so you don't oppose the electronic cigarettes?
Reclaiming my time, they have propylene glycol, flavoring, and water in them. That's all that's in this personal vaporizer. It is not an e-cigarette in any way whatsoever. It doesn't even look like a cigarette.
Well, the gentleman then says he doesn't.
And I would yield to the gentlelady again.
Thank you. The gentleman is speaking only about vaporizer. He and I should get together to see that at least with respect to e-cigarettes, if we could agree. But I did note that the gentleman did emit smoke from the vaporizer.
Reclaiming my time. There's no smoke in this.
Would the gentleman yield?
There's no carcinogens. It's vapor.
Would the gentleman yield?
To whom?
To me for a second.
I will yield to the gentleman.
Thank you. The gentleman said a moment ago that that the amendment, because it says delivers nicotine or other substances, could mean an asthma inhaler, etc. I just want to say that it could not be interpreted that way because it says that delivers nicotine or other substances to a user of the device in the form of vapor that is inhaled to simulate the experience of smoking. So that would limit it away from
reclaiming my time. So you're going to put into law something that simulates smoking and make that anything that simulates the act of smoking?
I'm simply pointing out that this is a limiting phrase that would not allow this to be interpreted as asthma inhalers or other things.
The problem with this is there is too much interpretation.
Could I ask the gentleman a question?
What we're doing with this amendment, you're stifling innovation, you're stifling entrepreneurship, and you're stifling the ability for people to get off of cigarettes.
Could I ask the gentleman
That's what
a
these personal vaporizers do, is they allow people to quit smoking cigarettes and start vaping, which Britain just came out, by the way. The British Association of Doctors said it's 95% healthier than smoking cigarettes. We don't have all the information about this yet, but it's 95% healthier than smoking cigarettes. Lloyd's of London now underwrites your insurance policy. You get a discount if you vape. By the way, it's called vaping. Once more, vaporizers and vaping, there is no smoke. And your insurance will now recognize this and discount you accordingly. So with that, I would urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment.
Could the gentleman answer a question?
I yield back.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it was about 26 years ago on this committee, I offered an amendment to ban smoking on planes. I lost by 1 vote when Jimmy Hayes changed his vote. Jimmy shall live in infamy. The Appropriations Committee had to step in and do it. I hate it when the appropriators do things that we should be doing ourselves, but it's now banned. I appreciate that Duncan has converted to something that is less noxious than tobacco smoke, but as you notice, he's sort of fanned the vapor. I don't think we want to have clouds of vapor inside the aircraft. I don't want to sit next to someone exuding clouds of vapor. They are scented in some cases, and it's not something I want to be inhaling. I'm glad that it's helpful to him to inhale it, but that should be in his own private space, not in a very confined public space, which is already subject to what's, I think, sometimes commonly called passenger rage. I can imagine passenger rage emitting. And I would say this would just be like cell phones. We don't want people talking on cell phones because it's going to start fights, and the flight attendants have enough problems as it is. So we don't want people vaping. Duncan is free to wear a patch for the duration of the flight, which will deliver nicotine, which does not impact any of the other passengers. And then when he gets off, he can go back to vaping once he gets out of the airport, depending upon the local rules on vaping. So, that I think would solve this issue. I mean, it may be problematic. The words after nicotine, I don't know what other substances, I don't know why that's there, and perhaps that would allay some of his concerns if the words from or to the end were deleted. Would that, could I ask the gentleman if that would allay some of the concerns he's raised? Not the personal concern, but the others.
The other substances, by the way, could refer to what's legal in Oregon and Washington State.
That's correct.
I guess.
That's why.
Right.
That's why I'm saying So all right, maybe I shouldn't go there, but maybe we'll just vote on it as is. Then we don't want to get into that discussion here today. So with that, Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
you yield, the gentleman yield.
For a brief moment, yes.
First of all, I don't know what's in the vapor. The second point is secondhand smoke or secondhand vapor could be equally noxious to somebody sitting beside the gentleman, and that is part of the problem and why some airlines have gone ahead and already
and
done away
reclaiming
with
my
it.
time, I forgot there is one other critical point, and I trust that the chairman hasn't had this problem yet. They do explode, and the reason they're not allowed in checked baggage is because of the potential for triggering a fire. And the theory is if they're in carry-on bags that the flight attendant can grab a fire extinguisher and put it out. And there was one that exploded on a plane, and fires have been ignited by these things. There is also a safety issue. They are temporarily banned by the Pipeline Hazardous Safety Materials Agency from being on board, from being used on aircraft. I think that this issue is, yet unfolding in terms of concerns. So I thank the gentleman for the time.
Ms. Frankel?
I want to support the amendment because I just want to speak in opposition to unnecessary sneezing, choking, or coughing by passengers on an airplane. I think it's a good amendment.
Ms. Estes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of us have been doing a lot of work on the health and safety as yet unknown impacts of vaping and e-cigarettes, and I think until we have definitive proof that it is entirely safe, it is clearly going to be considered noxious by some people, and I did notice your seatmate there waving her hand. I know I would too, and I think in fairness to the traveling public that we should not enforce any more noxious odors, scents, or anything else. We've all been there with someone who wears too much perfume. Imagine if you've got vaping going on for a 6-hour flight. I think this is an easy call. Thank you.
Well, I oppose the amendment, and I think vaping it's moist air. Is that correct? That's what it is. But let me just say to you, and I would say to every single member in this body in Congress today, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to ban hot air. We're going to ban bad breath and body odor. Now, do you think we're really going to go there? I mean, come on. And I've been on the floor before talking to some of you, and I've had to take a step back. So there's nothing out there that says this is unsafe. Again, we can go to the ridiculous. This is probably going to be the headline tomorrow in the committee. We're talking about banning bad breath and BO. But again, I oppose the amendment. And any other members wish to be heard? Seeing none. What's that? Next page. Seeing none.
I'd like a vote on this amendment.
Are there amendments to the amendment? None. If not, the question is on. Ms. Norton's Amendment 71. The question is, all in favor of those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed.
Mr. Chairman, on that, yes, recorded vote.
Recorded vote has been requested. Sufficient number of members have requested a recorded vote. Rules of the committee, transportation of a recorded vote, and the amendment is ordered. Pursuant to the rule of the committee, talking to Mr. Fazio. We'll wait until noon. Roll this to noon.
Mr. Chairman, you already made that statement, so I would reinforce it again. Noon, we will have recorded votes.
Okay, next one, Mr. Micah, Amendment 26.